Hello everybody, and welcome back to another movie review. Now today is going to be the live action Mulan. Now, I remember when this first came out, okay, and a lot of people did not like it. I kind of remember that. And so it was also on Disney Plus Premium, which I didn't have before, so I couldn't even watch it in the first place. But now I have that, so I was like, hey, let's watch a live action Mulan. When I was on my Disney, my Disney streak, I watched this along with, the animated Mulan. So this will actually be a bit of two things. Number one, it'll be a review from, it'll kind of be kind of like what I did with Beauty and the Beast. The animated Mulan versus live action Mulan, okay? And then we'll do it just as a movie. Just like the review as a movie independently, ignoring the animated. The animated has nothing to do with this. Let's do it as a movie independently. Now, I think this was supposed to be a movie away from the animated because this has nothing to do with the animated. This is terrible as a live action Mulan review, but spoiler alert, it's good as a movie on its own. So let's go through all my points to why that is, and then we'll do the whole here's the score, and then we'll decide from there. So I kind of went through the movie, and I just wrote things down as I noticed them. So this is kind of like going in order of the movie, chronological order. So the Emperor is very stiff. He does not have much movement. I'm not seeing enough movement, and he does not play as large. I mean, he didn't really play a large role in the animated either, but he still played a role. Do you know what I mean? And in the live action, he doesn't really play much of a role. And so it's kind of just confusing. And then there's one huge thing I noticed at the beginning is why is there a woman on the opposing army? Now, in the original Mulan, that was the huge thing with the animated was, Mulan is a woman. She's posing as a man. That's not normal, especially in the given, time period. Very loose quotes around that. They didn't really, they based it around a time period, but not really. Do you know what I mean? But in the time period, that's not normal. Especially like back in the day, there was not women in the army. That was not a thing. It's cool, but it also kind of defeats the purpose of Mulan in the first place, because the first thing is, Mulan is a woman and she's a badass, and now she's fighting in the army. Like, that's super cool. That's never been done before. That's kind of like the whole thing in Mulan, but it kind of defeats the purpose, and it's kind of weird. The lady is super cool later in the movie, which we'll get to, but it's just kind of weird and kind of defeats the purpose of Mulan as a character. They didn't use the same code name, which is kind of weird. They didn't have Mushu, which is the biggest thing. No Mushu. That's why I'm kind of like, was it meant to really be a live action of Mulan? Because you have the horse, which doesn't really talk or like have really emotion. It's just a horse. And there's no Mushu. There's no Lucky Cricket or whatever. It's not really Mulan at all. And it's kind of really weird. And they are really, in this movie, they really leaned into the housewife thing. Which again is that's the time period, and that is, what women were, but they really leaned into it. It was very big in this movie. There's absolutely no song or singing in this at all. At all. Which is like really weird, because it's like, even during the matchmaker scene, there's no like, ancestors, hear my prayer. Like, there's none of that in this movie. There's no singing at all. So again, was it really supposed to be a live action Mulan, or was it just supposed to be a standalone, another version that happens to be live action of Mulan? And again, I do kind of say this later, but if it was a different movie not claiming to be a live action Mulan, it would be a very good film. But I'll get more on that later. But I do kind of still acknowledge that as a maybe I am ill informed and it was supposed to be something different from the animated, but
Okay,
I
so
don't know. It has
future
nothing to
editing
do with the
Tori here.
animated
I did learn
Mulan. It's
something
not very
online, and they
good at in
basically
that
wanted to
sense.
make the movie more historically accurate to the actual legend of Mulan. So sort of was based off of the animated, also wasn't. So kind of a bit confusing and conflicting there, but that's basically what I found online. So all of my points still stand, but to have you guys be informed, it's kind of supposed to be more realistic. That's why they removed Mushu and all that. Kind of, again, didn't really make the movie very good as far as a animated versus live action, but here we are. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out, as well as it wasn't very popular at first. And it was a very popular period because of controversy surrounding the actors, which I did not know before. So, I also wanted to tell you guys about that. Will not change my ending review because I'm reviewing it based on the actual, film itself, ignoring the outside actors or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it doesn't impact it later, but I just wanted you guys to be informed because I was just informed of this as well. So anyway, continuing. But it also, I don't know, it kind of seems like an English dub over. There's some portions where it's like, this person is talking and then their lips keep moving afterwards. So sometimes I did notice that a little bit, but then again, I was purposely looking into the movie to be, to make a review on it. So maybe I wouldn't have noticed if I wasn't looking at it from that perspective, but it kind of seems like a weird English dub over sort of thing. Which there's nothing wrong with that, but it was a little weird. Her falling for like a dude in the army, because that's eventually what happens, is kind of a bit better than the commander, because I was really shocked about the commander. I was really shocked because when I saw the commander, obviously I was in the mindset of the animated movie, and I was like, oh, she's going to fall in love with the commander. But the commander came out, and he was this old fart of a man. And I was like, oh, okay.
We're going to make men out of every single one of you.
But then she ended up falling for a guy in the army, which I feel like is a lot better. And honestly, their whole storyline from like the campfire to, earlier in the movie kind of felt more, I don't know, like in the animated, it was very, it was natural as well. But in this one, it was more like subconsciously you could tell from her actions that like she was really starting to like this guy, not like outright move. She was like, "Oh, you like him?" You know what I mean? So it's like you could kind of tell from this person's acting. Which, by the way, the casting in this movie was spot on, very good acting. The antagonist side of things really made me hate him, which means good acting. And then the crow lady. The crow lady, I can't remember her name for the life of me, but she was kind of a badass. This is kind of away from the comparison of the live action versus the animated to just like flat out as a movie. She is a great addition. I honestly love it because she's like a woman in the Imperial Army, and she's like another badass. Yes, please, like give me more women empowerment. I love it. And honestly, the connection of Mulan and the Crow is kind of insane. I kind of like loved it, and the Crow was kind of like I don't know. I kind of felt like one side was, Mulan's like, go to the dark side sort of thing, and then the other side is like her trying to be a part of the army for real. And it's like really cool sort of, contrast. And the whole battle scene, is just when they finally get to battle after, their long voyage. I I loved it, dude. It was so epic. Nothing to do with the the animated Mulan. But it was so cool independently. Cause in the animated, she shoots a cannon and she shoots the mountain, and then it comes down, and then that's a really cool feat, and then, she's injured, and then everybody finds out she's a woman. But in this one, nothing at all like that. During battle, she gets injured, and then the crow's like, let's do this together, let's, do all that. She's like, no, I don't want to go to the dark side. And then the crow's like, embrace your inner woman, basically. And then so she, like, takes out her bun, and then she's like, hair flowing, bam, 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 and it's so cool. It is so epic. And it's just, it's so cool. Again, it has nothing to do with the live action, but she still gets shunned and stuff like that. And everybody was like, okay, you go, girl. Nobody, like, stopped her and said, why are you a woman? Obviously, after the fact, yes. But this fight scene speaks for itself. I mean, I will try and insert as much as I can of it, but I mean, come on, man. It was so cool. At the end of the battle, after they go back to the city, and then the Huns come back, that's pretty true to the animated, and but she fights him in, like, this really cool, like, scaffolding sort of area, and that's also incredibly cool, because there's, like, a whole thing, like, well, will you be a woman, like, like, why are you a woman? No, will you be a woman? No. Like, why are you a woman? That sort of thing. And, it's so cool. And, she's, like, flipping everywhere, and, he ends up dying in one of the coolest ways, but also kind of gruesome for a Disney film, not gonna lie to you. Again, similar to the animated, like, she's offered all of these awards and stuff like that, but she's like, I need to go back to my fam. And the honor thing, honestly, kind of love to see it. She does become an officer, and that's super cool, honestly. And then at the end, spoiler alert, the crow lady is like, she's donesy, because she sacrifices herself for Mulan, and I think that's so cool. It's a really cool ending, but I will say this. There was not enough love. There wasn't enough love in this one, because obviously she does fall for a dude in the army, but there wasn't enough, of them actually interacting. I mean, there was a scene after the battle where he was like, you're still, so headstrong, and it's like, they're talking, and it's like kind of alluding to, like, maybe we could do another movie. Because I would love another movie, just because I want to see them to get together, because it was low-key cute how, independent she was, and how, like, she's kind of rejecting these feelings, but she's also a really badass lady that don't need no man, like, that sort of inner conflict. I love it, and I don't know, it's really cool. So, as kind of going through the movie, and also going through the live animated movie, kind of in my head, but also I have a tab pulled open, spoiler alert, of, how the movie went. As a like a recreation of the animated, I'm not going to tell you that it is good by any means, because this has nothing to do with the animated. The things that I can tell you are similar are the Huns coming to the city, her kind of low-key carrying the battle on her back between the Huns in the mountains, and the honor to her family and stealing the armor and stuff in the first place. Other than that, there's no Mushu, there's no falling in love with the commander, there's not really, a big, like, conflict at the beginning of the movie, kind of like there was in the animated with, all the boys and stuff like that. She does kind of make those friends in the live action, but not to an extent, like not really to the extent that you would think, but as a, recreation that's not very faithful to the anime. The very baseline stuff is there, but it's not really, it's not there. You know what I mean? But as a independent film, honestly, looking at it from that lens, completely different lens, by the way, it's really good. I really enjoyed this movie. It is on, like, one of my top 10 movies, or I should be more specific, Disney movies that I've watched in a very long time. It was very cool. The whole portrayal of, women in the army and the role of women in this movie is just so empowering, and it feels so just powerful. Like, you watch it and you get goosebumps. I mean, even watching it through, I'm not just cold. I'm always cold, but I'm not cold in this scenario. Literally watching it or even scrolling through it, it gives you goosebumps because it's so powerful, and the way the actors portrayed it is just so powerful. I mean, there's no other, badass. There's no really other word to describe it. And the animated obviously is a classic, so, you can't really beat that one. And it's so, but it really did a good justice when it comes to a movie independently. As a animated, it did do it dirty. I mean, like, compared to the animated, it did do it majorly dirty. But it was just a very powerful movie. If you look at it from an independent lens. Now, as a lens from the animated versus live action, that whole different lens, I would give this movie a 3.5 out of 10. Because, again, like I said, the foundation is there. But there's no Mushu, there's no Cricket, there's no grandma, there's very minimal, there's no singing, there's just very minimal actual, like, substance in, like, throughout the film. Again, baseline, yes, but substance, there's not really anything there, from the animated that translated into the live action. There's very, very little there, so that's why I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 10, because it was not very good compared to the animated. And it wasn't very faithful as a recreation of the animated. Now, as an independent movie, like I said, it's very powerful. Just the role of women in it, very powerful. So, I'm going to go to the other side for this one. And I will give this one a 9 out of 10. For just the live action, for just not thinking of the animated, just the having it as a Mulan movie, it is a 9 out of 10 because, like I said, it's so powerful. The role of women in it is absolutely great. The role of the just culture of China in it is so good, and it just feels so real. And that's kind of why I also kind of gave the, animated versus live action a bit of a higher score than I probably would have because of the casting. The casting is just so good. Just the atmosphere of it, the development of it is really good as a movie independently. But again, as a animated versus live action, not very good. But I would suggest it if you want it. I would highly suggest that you go see it. Well, more like sit at home and see it because it's not in theaters anymore. But I would suggest you see it through the lens of this has nothing to do with the animated, because that is the best way to view it, in my opinion, because it's a good movie independent from the animated, but it's not a very good movie as a versus sort of thing. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to join the Aqua Team today. I'm very happy with this movie. It's a very good movie. I highly suggest you watch it, and I will see you guys in the next movie review. So long for now, my Aqua Team.